Does anyone still remember this aspect about Zebec? Now, before I continue on any further, I am not a financial advisor. However, when I take a look at Zebec, back in August, they made a post talking about how they were going to be teaming up with something called World Mobile. Now, they're going to be launching, supposedly, something called ZebecNet, which is allegedly this data-only eSIM network, and it's built on World Mobile, right? Or should I say its infrastructure, and it's supposedly made exclusively for Zebec. Now, why am I even saying this even though it happened back in August? Because Zebec not too long ago made an update when it comes to this. They're talking about how, signups are live or something like that. But the thing is, personally for me, I think if anything, it kind of showcases the progression when it comes to that. Because some people thought that, oh, it's going to be treated for fun. No one really cares about this. They're not really going to treat it seriously because sometimes we're so accustomed to seeing so many projects out there say they're going to do this, say they're partnering up with this, and then afterwards they don't really do anything. They just kind of, ignore it, and that's it. But when it comes to Zebec, I like how they seem to be following through with the things that they seem to be doing. Now, personally, when it comes to this, I still have to wait and see as to what really could happen, but I still kind of like the hypothetical progression nonetheless. Just overall when it comes to Zebec, because even back then, right, everyone thought that the Zebec cards, they weren't really going to do anything, but then we saw, kind of the things they did, so that's pretty cool. Even though I don't think it is the most revolutionary thing of all time, I made a bunch of projects out there also have cards, basically, but I like how they're treating it more seriously than some other projects out there. When it comes to World Mobile, in my perspective, it seems to be not the most popular thing out there, but I find it pretty interesting nonetheless because if we take a look at Zebec, if they're really focused on that global trade and finance space, if they're really focused on that kind of payroll aspect side of things, wouldn't something like World Mobile maybe kind of help them in their sort of objective, I would say? Because keep in mind, as of August, World Mobile supposedly was already powering over 2 million daily active users, and at that time there was around 140,000 community members. This is why I find it pretty cool as to what Zebec seems to be doing. Now, a lot of people didn't really even think about this. Like, if let's say months ago, or let's say just a year ago, right, I asked one of my friends, what do you think Zebec should do? Like, that wouldn't even be something they think about. So this is what I like about the team. They seem to be pretty creative, I think, when it comes to their partnerships. Now, I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but that's just kind of my perception when it comes to this. Also, what I find pretty interesting is that as of right now, Zebec, they're kind of more so updating regularly as opposed to some other projects out there that don't really do this. And I do like that. Keeps me a little bit entertained, keeps me at least somewhat positive at a time like this when clearly ZBCN isn't doing the best. And because Zebec seems to be having a lot of partnerships lately and kind of some updates, I feel like what they did not too long ago with something called Stripe, and yeah, that's pretty popular, right? I mean, not too long ago, we saw what they did with Stripe. More specifically, when it comes to Privy, which is now part of Stripe, but I'm saying they did something with that as well. So I find it pretty interesting. In the grand scheme of things, sometimes you'll forget about this, but because there's a lot, sometimes it's kind of easy to forget, but I find it pretty interesting overall. Now, when I take a look at ZBCN, it's still looking kind of boring, so sometimes people like to tell me, well, these partnerships don't really mean anything. Well, I kind of don't have that mindset though, because yeah, sure, we're still over 30 times lower, literally, than 10 cents when it comes to ZBCN. But at the same time, these partnerships, I think, kind of build the foundation of something like Zebec. It kind of builds the groundwork for maybe what Zebec could do moving forward. Because if a project is only focused on the price charts, I feel like, what is the longevity there? Shouldn't it be better to focus on the fundamentals? Because that's what got them there, right? That's what got the project to where it was. So why suddenly ignore the fundamentals after the project has reached a certain point? I just don't get it. This is why I am still, a fan of what Zebec seems to be doing. Because if we take a look at, for instance, Zebec still working towards ISO 20022 compliance, I feel like that right there could really be the cherry on top, and even more so on top of all the things they've already done so far. Even, I think, eclipsing what they did with Algorand, or even eclipsing what they're about to do, hypothetically, with World Mobile. I really do believe that, because I feel like that right there, it could really be the kind of stamp, right? I feel like it could really be that statement sort of achievement where it puts it in more so of the level of like a XDC. which historically XDC is just way more popular than something like Zebec, even as of right now. So it could maybe kind of make it more of a even sort of, I would say, match, right? If let's say it could achieve that ISO 20022 compliance, but I'll have to wait and see when it comes to that. But at least they're working towards it, supposedly. They've already done like SOC2 and MICA, or should I say MICA? But, again, the one I think a lot of people really sort of want to talk about is that ISO 20022 aspect. Now, in the meantime, though, the only thing I can literally do is just, I guess, take a look at the updates when it comes to Zebec, take a look at what seems to be going on, and really beyond that, that's all I can really do, actually. But in the meantime, though, I find it pretty cool because if we take a look at the aspect of Solana, it is kind of oftentimes ignored when it comes to Zebec, but we have to consider when it comes to the origin of Zebec, supposedly, right? It is allegedly the first continuous settlement protocol on Solana, which is pretty interesting. And could that have played a role as to why Solana Ventures is a backer when it comes to Zebec? I think, hypothetically, maybe. And keep in mind, when it comes to Zebec, it's supposedly, right, allegedly, from what I can see, is one of the largest real-world user bases in the Solana ecosystem. And this is coming from a project that does not even have a market cap of like over 250 million. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of like fascinating for me to see. And I think that when Solana Ventures kind of believes in a project, let's say they back it, I'm pretty sure they did a lot of research. That's just my perspective. I'm not going to believe in every single thing that Solana Ventures, basically believes in, but, I still find it pretty interesting to me. And yeah, that's pretty much about it. I mean, all I can do right now is just take a look at what Zebec's doing, but I am pretty interested actually as to what they could be doing when it comes to World Mobile, so I wanted to make a updated video when it comes to that and just, I guess, talk about my thoughts when it comes to this. But nonetheless, I am still staying patient. I get it, there's over 80,000 holders, and it's not necessarily the best, but it's not the worst either, and me being one out of the over 80,000, I can't do anything about Zebec, about the charts. So, yeah, I'm just going to stay patient. That's all I can do. I want to say thank you for watching. Hope you all have a nice day. It's Willie the Captain. I'm out. Peace. Bye.